We're on to the final stop of our world tour. We'll be driving our final vehicle, the one at the very beginning of the character select screen, Roadkill. It's a junker assembled from scraps of other cars, and it returns from the first game where it was driven by Captain Spears. He went back in time to try and rescue his military platoon, but ended up dying himself, so now it is driven by Marcus. He's under the bizarre delusion that Twisted Metal is a video game that he's trapped inside. He's going to use his wish to reveal the truth and escape this fake world. The game manual reveals that his full name is Marcus Kane, so he's somehow related to Needles Kane, but it is, strangely enough, never explicitly spelled out how. It also says that he has been living in this car for 10 years, so last year I guess he was just in the back seat during the competition. Now that Captain Spears is gone, he's been upgraded to the driver's seat. Just in time to take on the Hong Kong Crunch. Terrible level name. Sounds more like a cereal than a battle, but whatever. It's crunch time. We happen to start near the docks, which have pickups all the way out in the water, so it's a good thing the water doesn't instant kill you like I sort of suspected the first time through here. If you make it over the fence, that'll kill you, but not instantly. It'll just drain your health, and you can't escape. So don't do that. I did manage to get an enemy over the fence one time, but only one time, and I've played this level a lot. I have overplayed this level, and it's going to show in my gameplay. But for now, we will not worry about that. Just see what it's all about. You can probably tell from the video length, it is about quite a bit. It's the longest video of Twisted Metal 2 by a wide margin. But we've explored the docks, we're on to the temple. We are getting lightning pickups for the first time since the second level. And we can use them right here in the temple, which inexplicably has a lightning rod at the top. We can shock the enemies with it, or ourselves if we are so inclined. The very edge of the temple is the outer limit of where the lightning reaches. And it can be very useful. With 8 enemies, they can pile in here sometimes. You can shock them all. Got up onto the top level in the unintended manner. I'm sure I'll show off the intended manner later. But you can ramp up there if you have a fast enough car like Roadkill. And you get your full health pickup, you get power missiles, and 2 homing pickups, which I'm already full on homing missiles. Hasn't come up much throughout the LP, but there is a cap on how much you can carry of each weapon in the game. It's going to come up a lot this time because weapon hoarding is a major part of surviving this level, because it's so ridiculously long. But we've got our weapons, let's try out our special a little bit. It's a boomerang. Very awkward to learn how to use. On its trip out, anything it hits will cause it to be destroyed, even if it's an enemy. But on its return trip, it can travel through anything to get back to you. If it hits an enemy on that return trip, it will do considerably more damage. It will lazily home in on opponents both ways, but you kind of want it to miss most of the time, because the outbound trip does very poor damage. So it's by far the most interesting special in the entire game, and quite difficult to use. But very effective once you master it. I can't say that I have mastered it, but I can certainly put it to good use. And now that I've lured a bunch of enemies to my current location, need to make a bit of an escape through the final area of interest in Hong Kong, which is this subway system, filled with incredibly important pickups, and, of course, a subway train. Subway train is worthy of as much attention as the pickups. You can sort of see what I'm trying to do here. If I land on the train and start bouncing, I'll end up taking lethal amounts of damage pretty quickly. So what I'm trying to do is land like this, which immediately kills your momentum and just lets you ride the train around. While you're doing this, you occasionally get a train ride bonus, which gives you another use of your special and refills a little bit of your health. So it's a good way to stock up, as well as getting the weapons. And you can see a bit of a code sitting beneath us, which means I finally have a use for the invisibility energy move. We can see that the code is down left R1, and the final character is down as well. Entering that code at the level selection for a multiplayer match sends you to another retro level. This time the rooftops from the end of Twisted Metal 1. You can also destroy the trains if you're so inclined, but they're your friends, so you shouldn't do that. And they eventually respawn, so it's pointless anyway. Only other thing to note is that part of this subway track passes underneath the temple, which puts it in range of the lightning attack, which the enemies can use to harass you while you're down there. But that's pretty much all there is to see of Hong Kong. I have to make the rounds for a while, collecting all the weapons and attacking anybody who gets in my way. So, while I'm doing that, I guess I'll talk about what happened after this game to the vehicular combat genre, such as it was. I would save this discussion for the credits, but this game has very short credits and a ridiculously long final level. So, we'll talk about it now. There's a lot to talk about. After this game, Single Track got into a contract dispute with Sony and severed all ties, which caused them to lose the rights to the Twisted Metal name that they had created. So Sony got 989 Studios to make the third and fourth games in the series. They skipped a year, and the third game came out in 1998. By then, Single Track had already created two new vehicular combat IPs, Critical Depth and Rogue Trip, they're called. The Vigilante 8 series had made its debut, although it had yet to see the N64 port. That would be my introduction to vehicular combat games. And the first Carmageddon had come out. I was mistaken earlier when I said that Carmageddon came before Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal actually beat it by a couple of years, well and truly inventing this weird genre. But clearly it had exploded into a full-fledged genre after TM2 here. So those 989 games, they had some tough competition to deal with. They still have their fans. They're generally considered pretty good games by the objective observer. But the team that created the first two games vocally despised the third and fourth installments. They encouraged fans to boycott and disparage those games. And when Single Track eventually disbanded, many of those team members formed a new studio called Incognito Entertainment. Incognito did end up signing with Sony, and in doing so, got the rights to develop more Twisted Metal games themselves. So they first made Twisted Metal Black. It's ostensibly a reboot of the series that is unrelated to these games, but it's considerably more complicated than that. We'll get to that later. It did debut the series on the PlayStation 2, and it's the first game in the series to get an M rating. And boy is it ever a hard M. So, it was very odd when they followed that up in the same year with a Twisted Metal Kids game, which jumped back a generation to the PS1. It's one of the strangest decisions in the history of any series ever, but it's distinctly a non-canon game. So, about 4 years after they released those two games, they followed up with a PSP exclusive Twisted Metal Head On, which is a direct sequel to Twisted Metal 2. Seems like they wanted to wipe Twisted Metal 3 and 4 out of everyone's memory for good, and celebrate what they feel is the peak of the series. And yes, I'm aware of the irony of saying that this game is the peak of the series, while showing you me driving around in circles for 10 solid minutes not killing anybody. This level's kind of unfortunate. Anyway, Incognito did not live much longer after the release of Head On. They disbanded shortly thereafter, but many of its founding members did form another new team called Eat, Sleep, Play. That team would create an enhanced port of Head On for the PS2, and that will be the next game that we see in this LP series, if I ever complete this level. I'm at about the point where I've got just about every pickup, including all the health pickups, and I desperately need the full health pickup to have respawned, but it has not, so my life is over. There may be another health pickup that I'm thinking of now, but I didn't think to check it at the time. I probably wouldn't have been able to survive to get over there anyway. So what I'm going to try to do is get as many people in here as possible, use up as many of the weapons I've collected as possible, and deal maximum damage with my death throws. Getting them in here is not working out great. Sometimes they'll all pile in at once, sometimes they'll just never show up at all. But here's a few of them. Get them with my special, and die as expected. I'm the first casualty. But I've done enough damage that winning is at least possible, which is definitely not always the case after your first death in this level. That's why I played so carefully. Weapons are just now starting to come back. I'm gonna keep doing the rounds and avoiding damage as much as possible. But whenever I see a sufficiently injured enemy, I'm going to try and stick around and finish them off. Ideally, I'll take out the actually dangerous ones. When you play this level a lot, you learn to fear just about all of the opponents in this game. Grasshopper is manageable, Mr. Grimm is generally pretty easy because he has very low health. Twister can be a nightmare. Hammerhead is actually one of the easier ones, just because his special is melee only, so he doesn't get many opportunities to use it. Sweet Tooth is the single worst. In fact, of all the enemies I got here, the only really terrible one that I didn't get was Spectre, who will just wander around an obscure part of the level and fire his homing special at you, which can hit you through walls no matter where you are. Nothing you can do about it, except use your shield. Eventually he'll catch you without any energy left. Outlaw can also be a pretty huge problem, but I didn't get her either. I did rear fire a weapon for the first time. It's pretty useful here in this grid-shaped level. Especially with this high concentration of enemies, you're likely to hit something. But I still prefer to aim and actually see it happen. The boomerang's been treating me really well throughout this cleanup phase. Even if you just use it to hit enemies with a lower damage outbound attack. When they're at this low health, it's usually worth it. Anything to get a killing blow. Get another person off the field. Mr. Slam is also a relatively low threat target, although he is programmed to use the freeze attack as much as possible. He's actually repeatedly hit me with a freeze so many times in a row that I died from the damage of the freeze missile. He'll just spam the thing because it's the only way his AI is able to land his special attack. Which is annoying. And I don't have to deal with it anymore. Shadow's the only one left, and Shadow is a huge problem, as we saw when we played as him. He's one of the enemies you can never get in front of or behind, or he will hit you with his special. You just learn the shapes of what areas enemies threaten when you overplay a level this much. Luckily, with Roadkill special, it's got that arc so that you do not have to stand in front of your opponent. And it even rewards you with extra damage if you hit them after it turns a corner. Also, if the boomerang makes it all the way back to you, it sometimes lets you use it again. Recovers that use of the special. And that's the moment I'm sure everyone was waiting for. The end of this level. Not so fast. Darktooth, Sweet Tooth's father, rises from the sewers. "You killed my son," he shouts. "I want my little clown boy back." So this is why Sweet Tooth is not a playable character by default. And most likely why Yellow Jacket was cut after the first game. Yellow Jacket was driven by Charlie Kane, Sweet Tooth's father. They never confirmed that this is Charlie, or if they just retconned that story and gave it to a new character like they did with Mr. Ash. But if this is him, they gave him a bit of an upgrade, that's for sure. All of Darktooth's weapons are unique, although they're based on weapons from the main game. He constantly fires Sweet Tooth's napalm cone. This version fires in a spiral pattern, which looks really cool, and is super easy to dodge, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. But he also can throw the flaming head on top of his car at you. That one is practically a guaranteed hit. Doesn't do too much damage, but still, it sets you on fire, and the fire doesn't go out if you use your turbo. He has special ricochet bombs with clown faces on them. Again, not too bad as far as damage, but they send you flying like 10 times as much as a ricochet bomb normally does. So that's hard to deal with. And if he ever gets up close to you, he will just jump on top of you. The vehicle itself will stop you, and that is almost instantly lethal. Also, his other attacks will add up very quickly. But with a single life, we got him down to the dark in his health bar. So that's a pretty good start. And hey, I've still got 2 lives left before I game over. Seems generous that they would refill my life count in between the level and the boss fight. And that's because they did not do that. There is a password to go right to the boss for each character. I use that to refill my life count before fighting the boss because I could not do it all in a single segment like the game sort of expects you to. That said, the code to skip to the boss is in the game for each character, so it's not cheating, it's just the much easier way to do it. I did get to the final hit on the boss multiple times, but I never quite got it all in one go. But there we go. Now I'm done. Oh, god damn it! But wait, what's this? Inside the giant head, you see the shriveled figure of an old man. "Heads up, you freak," the senile fool screams. Yep, this fight keeps going. And this is the phase of the fight that killed me multiple times after I had completed the level and the boss fight. Which is really unfortunate, because this is definitely the home stretch. This severed head only has about 1 or 2 armor points if it were to be an equivalent of one of the existing vehicles. And it doesn't have the ability to crush you like the full Darktooth has, which is the attack that does the most damage by far. However, the pickups you got during the real boss fight stay gone during this part of the boss fight, so it can be hard to get more weapons. Best to use napalms because he's a huge target that you can hit easily. I think this is specifically why they made napalms one of the energy attacks that you could use. And when you do that, it's even a homing napalm. So, would have been smart to use those here. But once you get him frozen, maybe throw up a shield for safety, and take him out with whatever weapons you have. Then you can finally win the Twisted Metal Tournament and take a trip back to New York to claim your well-earned prize.
The driver of Roadkill, a man named Marcus Kane, stepped out of his car and came face to face with me, the creator of Twisted Metal.
They all call me crazy. They all say I'm insane. But I'm not. I know this isn't real. None of it is. I know it's all a dream. Please, Calypso, help me.
Oh, Marcus, I always knew you would be the one to figure it out. I will grant your wish, but please, feel free to come back and visit us any time. Well, the rest of your friends will be here for quite a while.
Dr. Goldsmith to proctology. Dr. Goldsmith to proctology.
Doctor, he's awake.
Good God, son, you're alive! Well, you were in a 25-car pileup on the freeway. It's a wonder you've come back to us at all. The rest are still in comas.
Dr. Flock, Dr. Becker.
These people, they all look so familiar. I've seen them before, fought them before. But where? I can't remember.
Daddy!
Oh my God! My family! You're here! I'm back! Everything's gonna be all right. I promise.
Marcus Kane got just what he wanted in one of the most interesting and ambiguous endings in the series. Was Twisted Metal all a dream, or was that another trick played on him by Calypso? That all ties into the greater lore of the upcoming series, so I will save that full discussion for when we have seen all the pieces of the puzzle. If you've already watched my Let's Play of Twisted Metal Black, you've got a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, now's a good time. It's the next canon game in the series, but I must warn you, it is much, much darker and more violent than anything we've seen so far. If you don't want to experience something that disturbing, or if you just don't want to sit through a 4-hour Let's Play, I made a separate video that is only a minute and a half long, where I reveal the super secret twist ending that you get by completing the game 15 times and decoding a series of hidden messages. But if you don't even want to devote that much time to finding out the secret, I'm gonna spoil it in the first video of the next game anyway, just so everyone's on the same page. So go ahead and pick your poison. I'm gonna let the game's title menu music play all the way through for once, and I will see you very soon with Twisted Metal Head On.